Hey there, listeners. Just a word of warning on this episode. We had a lot of problems with our recording quality. Not to bore you, but our microphone got a bit messed up. So I've salvaged what I can of this episode. The audio is pretty listenable now, but there's a few moments where it might get a bit crackly, so I apologize for that. Also, this episode is quite spoilery, honestly, so maybe give this one a miss if you are someone interested in playing Ravenloft games. This one's probably more aimed at the GMs or people who are just generally interested in the history of Ravenloft in general. That being said, it's a really fun episode, so if you're not scared of spoilers, go ahead and listen. Thanks. And I hope this doesn't hurt your ears too much. Cheers. Okay,
So, now that you've had a quick, inverted commas, a quick summary of the Ravenloft metaplot, some of the highlights, there's a few other things that were going on. You know, various Dark Lords came to power and went away and, you know, what have you. But I think those are the sort of the main beats. We're now going to get into the second half of this, which is our top Ravenloft products. So you'd like to know more about Ravenloft. You want to know what the best books are to find out about. This is purely subjective.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, such lists can only be subjective. So really it's just some things that I think are okay, in my opinion.
Are they all available on DM's Guild?
They are all available on DM's Guild.
Okay.
So the rules that I set are they have to be available on DM's Guild,
Yeah.
which is why the Ravenloft Gazetteers are not on this list.
Otherwise, they would be like number one. Right?
Otherwise, they would be number one.
Yeah.
But they're not available, so I'm not recommending them at this time.
I'm sure I had like a PDF, at least one at some point.
They were available, but for some reason, rights or something,
Yeah.
they're not available now.
Damn.
And the physical products go for a lot of money. I got lucky and I've got 4 out of the 5.
Wow.
And again, you know, one day, I would love to pay hundreds of dollars to get the one that I'm missing.
Right.
Also, I'm not going to recommend you any previous incarnation of Curse of Strahd. Yes, we know that it's the best adventure. If you're interested in Ravenloft, you've already got Curse of Strahd. So I'm not going to recommend you Curse of Strahd's earlier 3rd edition make, or 2nd edition, or 1st edition, or 4th edition, or what have you.
And the thing is, the 5th edition one is a really good
It is a wonderful adventure.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed it. In our last video, we raved about how much we love Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
And the final thing is, I am not going to recommend you any campaign setting books.
Okay.
Normally, if you wanted to know about Planescape, I'd say go get the Planescape campaign setting. It's great. But in this case, we have a new campaign setting coming up, and it's going to change some of the details fundamentally. So there is no point telling you to go get the 2nd or 3rd edition Ravenloft campaign settings, because they're going to be superseded.
It is almost certainly going to change the Vistani.
Yeah. In fact, I've heard the Vistani show up in the new adventure anthology Candlekeep Mysteries.
Oh, yeah?
And that they've already changed in there.
Okay.
I don't know what the details are. I've just heard that they're in there.
That they are not styled after Eastern European Roma?
I don't know. But they've said that they had plans to change the Vistani. Everybody thought that meant that they'd be changed in Curse of Strahd Revamped. Where all they did was they changed a couple of words around.
Okay.
But they didn't actually make any meaningful change there. And so a lot of people were disappointed, and they thought that was the tokenistic change. But no, apparently it's in the next book, which has been delayed for New Zealand, so we'll find out one day. So yeah, not talking about those ones, and so these are, in no order whatsoever, my recommendations for what you should check out from DM's Guild. And first one we're going to say is Ravenloft 2, The House on Griffin Hill.
Oh boy.
We played this one.
We've already covered it in our retrospective, right? Or did we
I'm not sure.
God, I'll have to go back into the archives and see about that. Maybe we didn't. It's on the blog anyway. If you check out skybeargames.wordpress.com, it's all in one big entry.
So, for years, this was like the lost adventure for me. This was the thing I've heard about it, but I'd never ever managed to find a copy. So basically, Ravenloft started with the original Ravenloft adventure, which is Castle Ravenloft, Strahd, Tatiana, just that. And it's wonderful. And it was so successful that Tracy Hickman got asked to do a follow-up. And the follow-up is frickin' insane, guys! It's crazy! The first adventure is a very strong Dracula pastiche. Yeah, it's doing Dracula, that's it. but Ravenloft 2 has every single Gothic trope that got left out of the original Ravenloft. What have we got in this one?
Okay, for one, the setting is a very stormy, misty seaside English town.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
totally
Whitby, which is the thing that Curse Strahd didn't copy from the Dracula story.
However, the plot has got strong elements of Jekyll and Hyde, of Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a haunted house to investigate.
Yes, some of the darker, more gothic things of like Conan Doyle or Poe and things like that.
There's some definite Hound of the Baskervilles influence in there as well. It really is. It reads like every single thing that got left out of the original. It is also a bizarre fever dream of an adventure. Yeah. Quite literally, you are encouraged to make it feel like your players are going crazy and that reality is just a strange...
It really did. It felt so...
It's so weird.
I was so confused.
And it never really explains what it's doing with that or why. So, the short version is you are in this village where people are starting to act strange. Could it have something to do with the handsome alchemist Strahd von Zarovich? Why is he a handsome alchemist now? Reason. Didn't you kill him in that previous... No, reasons. And his experiments in the house up on Griffin Hill?
We leaned really hard into, like, the Mary Shelley vibes on this
Oh,
one.
it was so much fun.
It was so good. Because if you read, like, even Justin Frankenstein, but, like, if you read more of Mary Shelley's work, it's very much, like, men who, like, you know, speak with grand pronouncements to their male friends about how much they matter.
Incredibly intense relationships between characters.
So we really leaned into this gothic romance.
It was so much fun. It felt way more gothic than the first adventure, actually.
It actually did. Yeah.
Now, it is a mess to run, guys. So one of its central elements involves using 2 decks of playing cards to randomize what's going on.
Which you regularly got confused on.
Which I regularly got confused on. It was not easy to do. It's a real mishmash. So the random elements, you want to prepare this in advance. You probably don't even want to do it randomly, like what it's suggesting. I would pick things. That said, I remember when you first came across one of the people who had changed upstairs in a shop, and it was freaky and gothic. It was atmospheric. It was wonderful.
It was exactly the sort of, like, Act 1 investigating.
Yeah, something is wrong and weird and uncanny and bizarre. Also, instead of the Tarocca reading, which gives you a random plot in the original Ravenloft adventure, this one has a simulated mesmerist section where you are hypnotized and have to answer questions, and based on your answers to this sort of surreal dream that you get given of what you see, that determines the plot of the adventure and who the villain is and what their goal is and where they are and where different plot things are. Which is honestly way more complicated than the card reading in the original. That said, I did have fun turning it into a PowerPoint for you. Yeah. And so I had the images of the
darkened room and,
the eyes of the monster. So yeah, it's a weird adventure. And when Ravenloft then got turned into a campaign setting, all the independent elements of this adventure got made canon. But no one would ever talk about what happened in this adventure or how it came to work or anything.
Yeah. It's bizarre.
It's really weird. There's so many important things in it. Aslan, who we talked about so much just before, shows up in this one. Just
though you chose to cut him out, which I think was smart.
He's just in there as a red herring.
Yeah. If your players have nothing to do with it.
There's a couple of red herrings in it, which are just meant to distract you from what's going on. Yeah. There was enough going for us, it was.
Definitely.
So yeah, even in the second Strahd novel, which summarizes tells the story of what's happening in Strahd's life at this exact moment. Strahd and Aslan summon a portal, go through, and then the next chapter starts, and they have no idea what just happened.
Oh my god, it's like, dude, where's my mind?
Yeah, and it's the sort of the final straw that makes the two of them turn on each other.
Oh, I love it.
They came up with this. And what it implies is that it was part of Aslan's very first plan to escape Ravenloft.
Oh.
And he and Strahd managed to bust out of Ravenloft, sort of, kind of, maybe, question mark, who knows. And then the PCs and Strahd stuffed the whole thing up. And Aslan blamed Strahd for everything that went wrong, and that's why they hate each other so much.
Like the realm reformed around them or something.
Or they didn't actually get out in the first place, or no one really knows, and the adventure was kind of dubiously canon.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So atmospheric.
But anyway, for years and years and years, I heard about this thing, but I couldn't get a copy. It is print on demand in DM's Guild. It's not very expensive. I would check this one out.
And then you would combine it.
And I would combine it with Howls in the Night, which is a really short adventure which is set in the same domain, which is a much more Hound of the Baskervilles themed adventure. We inserted that as a sort of a side story, and the two complemented each other so well in their themes.
Yeah, I always forget that they're not actually
the same adventure. Yeah.
And this is great because it meant that Derwin and
Strahd,
good friend
Strahd, the alchemist,
not an evil person,
not a vampire,
were able to go on this bromance adventure and sort of Sherlock and Watson their way through this mystery.
What I really like about Howls in the Night as an adventure, which is a very gothic story of lost love and beasts out on the moor, and
it's very Wuthering Heights as well.
It is, yeah. Is that it has a number of different interpretations of what's going on written in the adventure, and so it leaves it up to the DM to decide what's actually the truth, who's actually the villain. Is it one or both or neither of the main characters involved? And so you can kind of aim it at what you think your group would like most, or if your group is guessing a certain thing as the truth, then you can undercut them by swapping to another ending. It's a very short adventure, but it's a nice one, and I feel it goes well together with the much more grandiose and complicated Ravenloft 2, the House on Griffin Hill.
Alright.
Well, I seem to have a theme here of horrifically complicated adventures.
I mean...
Because my next recommendation... Did you like Curse of Strahd? Do you want something that's just like Curse of Strahd all over again, but completely different?
Yes.
If you're listening to this, the answer's probably yes, because Curse of Strahd was awesome. Well, then what you want is Castles Forlorn.
Oh boy.
The most complicated D&D adventure I've ever read. Oh boy, you guys. Oh boy. If you thought Ravenloft 2 was bad, you ain't seen nothing. So, Castles Forlorn is set in this tiny little fly-speck domain called Forlorn, which in the original Ravenloft campaign setting received, I think, about 3 lines of description. Basically saying, it's there, no one knows anything about it. Yeah. Well, that is no longer true after this box set, because it goes into exhaustive detail about every single person who's there, who the Lord is, what the history is, and it has the most unique dungeon crawl that I've ever read in D&D. So, broadly speaking, you enter the domain, and you get a sandbox where you run around in the domain. It's not as sophisticated a sandbox as Curse of Strahd, but remember this is from back in the 90s, so, yeah. Technology has advanced. Is that the word I want? Design technology.
Design has advanced. Also, you can clearly see over time how role-playing games and video games have inspired each other.
Yeah.
So, sandbox video games and role-playing games have... Yeah. First of all, it was video games were struggling to catch up with the sandboxiness of role-playing games, and now I feel like it's role-playing games are getting inspiration back from seeing big things like Elder Scrolls and stuff. Yeah.
So in this case, what it more is there's a bunch of little mini adventures set in the domain, each of which has pointers for go to this one if the players do this, go to that one if the players do that.
But it's not very well indexed, is it?
No, of course not.
That's untrue.
But it doesn't really need to be, because the whole point is to just channel your PCs until they get to the castle. Right? The domain is really just a side feature. The whole point is to send them to the castle. This is the ghost castle. It's the haunted castle, and it is a doozy. Because this castle exists in multiple time zones simultaneously.
Oh my god.
And so as you walk from room to room, you could get transported to the ghosts of a different era of the castle.
Man.
And you have to try and keep track of what the PCs do in one time zone, because they cast a fireball in a room in one time, and then they go there in the future, everything will have changed as a result of what they've done.
Oh, damn.
Also, as a result of this, they will be interacting with the same characters over multiple time zones, so the characters in one era might not know who the PCs are, or they might remember them from an earlier incarnation, and it's pretty complicated.
I know how you do it.
Yeah?
I know how you organise this.
Yeah?
You
Jeez, I should run this one for me, except I know the secrets already.
You get a bunch of overhead transparency sheets. You copy the map onto the... you get like a base layer that's the map, or whether you do copy it onto each thing.
The castle is in different stages of construction in each period. And so some rooms don't exist in certain times.
Exactly. So on the top one, that's the earliest, and you cross out which parts aren't built, and you label certain features, and you can add little notes as to, like, you know, this will be here, and then you can go through the times, and you can see, actually the oldest ones would have to be under the future ones, wouldn't they? Because future ones, you need to see fireball was cast at this point, so you'll see it when you're up in the future. Yeah, that's how you do it.
Also, because of the design for this, because they want you to encounter certain things in certain orders, like meet certain characters in certain orders, there are no encounters tied to rooms.
Oh!
Instead, all the encounters are provided separately, and so the idea is that you will place them as you go and populate the castle, so that people can wander around and find it in different time zones.
But then do you need to remember where people were when you... Oh my god.
Yeah. So I wanted to run this for you, and I read through this, and I just, like, I could do this. But, oh boy.
You know what, I think that what it should be is that we do the overhead mapping, but we do it together.
Maybe.
GM and player.
Yeah.
Write on it together.
So I think you can see why this adventure. So there's a definite provision on this one of, like, this is not an easy adventure to run. Yeah. I have not yet actually found a report of anyone saying they've actually run things.
Challenge accepted. Let's do this.
All I've seen is people who've read it and gone, this is amazing and mind-blowing, and I don't know how I'd run it.
We might not be doing it anytime soon, but I think maybe when our friend Lauren is back and we've got
this might be one to try and do.
Some more, filming and recording stuff ready, I think maybe we should do this. Yeah.
Also, Ravenloft had a push towards having unique characters, so not just a vampire, but a character who's got unique powers, unique personality, unique weaknesses. The Dark Lord of this domain has the most convoluted backstory to justify why you can't just go, he's a ghost, we're going to use our ghost stuff on him. Yeah, we just can't.
Like Silver doesn't.
Yeah, you can't just go up and use your Ghostbuster stuff on him.
Oh my god.
He has an incredibly specific backstory, so that he has a utterly bizarre set of weaknesses that change based on when you're fighting.
Oh my goodness, this sounds like so much fun.
It's really cool.
I think this has to happen at some point. You've talked about it to me for years.
It's a really cool adventure. But, oh boy. It's also print on demand on DriveThruRPG. Oh, there's another one that used to be utterly inaccessible, and now you can get a copy for very cheap. Sweet. I'm not sure it's got all the maps. I think you have to buy it with the PDF separately, so you get all the PDFs of maps. But, yeah.
Cool.
Very cool.
Alright. What's next?
Next is another adventure, but we're going from utterly complicated, oh my god, how do you even, to this is a nice starting first level adventure. Huh. We've mentioned this one already. It's Night of the Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
I love this adventure.
You've made me read this one. It's good.
Yeah, you read this one for your student from your D&D club back.
I was preparing to run it, but it got too late in the year, and I quit.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really enough time to play it with them. Also, I think we played one session of it, and they made a really dumb decision. I forget exactly what happened, but like I think they made a really dumb decision, and I didn't want to massacre all their characters, so I just had it sort of just end abruptly.
Yeah. I remember I ran this one once back years ago, and then I ran half of it for some friends. Yeah, more recently, like within the last decade, and yeah, it's a good, solid horror adventure. It's very atmospheric. Again, I would change some of the stuff in it to bring it up to sort of modern design standards. In particular, early on, there's a bunch of crocodiles in a random encounter guarding a chest in the middle of a swamp full of magic swords that you have to have so that you can damage the final boss. I would change that.
Don't kill crocodiles.
So the plot of this is that you are in a very sort of Louisiana-esque marsh. You find your way to a tiny village with a plantation outside of town where a funeral is taking place. There's storms on the horizon that are constantly brewing and getting more and more intense but never breaking. There's a creepy child alone in the swamp and he's got candles set up in his house so there's no shadows anywhere in his house at all. And then, yeah, when you arrive in the town, there's a funeral taking place and the coffin is bound in chains. There's a thumping from within it. And the first half of the adventure, first 2/3, once you've gotten out of the swamp, is an investigation where you run around the town trying to find out who a serial killer is, picking up clues. And because it's an investigation, it's pretty tame. There's a fairly, horrific sequence if you go and investigate one location at the wrong time of day, but then Ravenloft is a horror adventure, so it should be pretty horrific. But of course, what this is all building towards is the climax. And once you've dealt with that serial killer, you might think that everything is over. But, well, this adventure is called The Night of the Walking Dead. And you can guess what happens in the climax. This is just full of good horror tropes. It's a lot of fun for players. It's an easy first level adventure.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Recommended as just a nice introduction to Ravenloft. I'd change some things around. I'd change the swamp. I would maybe get rid of the Vistani who pop up randomly. Or maybe you want to have a Vistani encounter. I don't know. I'd get rid of them. But, yeah, cool village, cool horror tropes. Recommended.
What's the next one?
Oh, my next one, we're going back to big box sets that used to cost a lot of money that are now print on demand.
How much did box sets cost back in the day?
I remember back in the day, like back when second edition was actually a thing, I got a box set for about $15. Might have been cheaper. And it was just a remainder bargain-based one. And also, before 5th edition, all the second-hand stuff was really cheap. I have a huge D&D collection because I was collecting in 4th edition when no one cared.
Yeah, no one had the nostalgia except for
Me.
you. And I didn't have nostalgia because I had nothing from the past.
So a lot of the stuff was very cheap back then.
I had, what is this thing?
Yeah.
Let me find out. Who knows anything? You know.
And actually, in 3rd edition, a lot of this... Back when 3rd edition came out, a lot of the 2nd edition stuff got remainder. So I remember my local gaming store got a huge pallet of reduced to clear remainder stock from the obsolete edition. And so I got a ton of it for bargain price. And that's why I've got such a huge Ravenloft collection, because they had a lot of dirt cheap, like $5-10 books for Ravenloft.
Also, they did publish a lot of little paperbacks.
Ever since 5th edition rolled along, the prices for the stuff has skyrocketed.
And everything is hardback now. Everything's like luxury.
Oh, I don't mean that though. I mean all the old stuff. If you wanted to get a box set, those things cost hundreds of dollars now.
Yeah. Everyone's got this nostalgia on. Also, I even personally know people who are a little bit older than you and came from like America and places like that, where they had a lot of stuff that got burned by their parents in the panic. So a lot of them will be buying copies because they couldn't have them when they were kids.
Anyway, the next one is called The Nightmare Lands.
Ooh.
And it's another one where in the original Ravenloft campaign setting, there was no detail about this place, and then that was because they were waiting to fill it in for a box set. So, the Nightmare Lands is a domain that only exists. Originally, it was a physical domain that was just really boring, just kind of there, and then it vanished during the Great Conjunction. And moved to your dreams.
Ooh.
So this is a domain that you can only enter during your dreams, full of a series of bizarre lords who like to haunt people's dreams and then torture them from within. Kind of, who's the horror movie character that lives in people's dreams? Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's right there in the name. Yeah, that's sort of an idea, right?
Yeah, I don't actually watch a lot of horror.
I don't actually either.
Yeah, no, I love gothic horror.
Yeah, but that's a slightly different thing to slasher horror.
Yeah, slasher.
Well, I don't think that these...
Freddy?
Yeah.
Freddy's the one
with the knives on his hand.
I always get Freddy and Jason confused, but Jason's the one who goes and kills camp counselors.
Is he? I don't.
Yeah, because the Friday the 13th game, I do actually really like watching that game. People streaming it, it's fun.
Anyway, so the Nightmare Lords are a bit more gothic than Freddy. Rather than just killing teenagers in their dreams, these are more about haunting people and manipulating them in their dreams and driving them insane. And so there's a series of adventures in here where you get to meet Dr. Ilhausen, who's like a poor man's Dr. Van Richten. And he runs an asylum where all the people in the asylum are having nightmares, and as a result, he's sort of figuring out what's going on with the nightmare court and all these entities that are preying on the lunatic in the asylum.
Sick.
And you, as the players, have adventures where you gradually get to find out more and more about the nightmare court, but also the special rules that are in the box for having a dream and existing in a dream world. That's pretty cool.
I want to play this.
It's really
I
cool.
want to play this real bad.
But the Nightmare Court has noticed that Dr. Ilhausen has noticed them, and so they've managed to corrupt one of the inmates from inside his dreams and set him up to be a killer in the real world.
Oh my god, I want to play that.
Like, these are good tropes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the Nightmare Court. It's just a really cool, evocative box and adventure, which, again, you can just buy as a print-on-demand book. I really like those print-on-demand books. They're wonderful. They put up the prices recently, actually.
Oh, okay.
Which, honestly, is reasonable. Like, some of the prices were really cheap.
I think also with COVID, it's actually made shipping harder
shipping
and stuff.
and what have you. All I know is, like, we've got all those Planescape ones, which, Planescape book cost an arm and a leg. And I know there are books that I've seen selling online for, best part of $100 that we managed to get for about $20 through drive-through, DM's Guild. Anyway, my final recommendation, my top 5, is actually about, 12, 13 books. I can count.
You're such a cheeky lich today. Wait. So there was the 13 that became 5, and now you're doing the 5 that becomes 13.
Well, no, this one particular point is about 13 books. So my final recommendation is actually probably my number 1 recommendation. And it is Van Richten's Guide to Vampires, Van Richten's Guide to Ghosts, Van Richten's Guide to everything. So there was a series of books called the Van Richten's Guide. You've read some of these.
I have read Vampires and Wares, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I read anything else. I think it was just those 2.
Originally there were 8 of them. And so the idea of each one was that they were written in character by Rudolf van Richten. And at the beginning of each book, he would explain how he came to discover the existence of this type of thing. So in the first book, he talks about how his son got turned into a vampire and how he's hunted vampires ever since. And then in the next book, he talks about how he learnt that ghosts exist now. And then in the next one, he says, I never knew that werewolves existed, but then I met a werewolf and now I have to fight them forever. And so on and so on. It's a little strange how he sort of has no idea that these things exist until he starts the next book, but sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they have exhaustive information about the psychology, physiology, strengths, weaknesses of all the different types of monsters. And also Vistani, because they got a guide too.
Othering of a culture.
That said, it did more for actually giving them an actual culture than had happened in any other books in the series. It's just a bit unfortunate that they got one of the monster books.
Yeah.
When I say a bit unfortunate, I mean extremely.
Yeah.
But that was, he blamed them and he had a prejudice against them, and then in that one he actually makes friends with them and learns that they're people too and forgives them, and yeah.
You did not go with that version, and
no, they went back from that one. So the great thing with the Van Richten's guides is that they really focus on making every single monster unique. They are very low on mechanics, and in the later ones what they'll do is they'll just have the mechanics be a page or 2 at the end of each chapter, summarizing the key points. They're very strong on flavour, so you will get summaries of a lot of monsters that Van Richten has fought that you can take inspiration from. You'll get a lot of guides on how to make your vampires be unique, individual vampires with their own mindset and personality and their own specific weaknesses that will reflect their backstories. There will be notes on what the key themes are for the different monsters, and how to bring those out, how to structure the ideal Ravenloft adventure, which should be, rather than doing a sort of dungeon crawl, should be about investigation and discovery of the monster and what drives it and what makes it an individual and being able to fight its specific weaknesses. They are the best guide for actually running a Ravenloft game.
And the bonus about, if you have them, is when your players meet Van Richten, he can give them the relevant guide for the adventure they're on.
So what I did in Curse of Strahd, because I knew that Van Richten was going to appear in the adventure, and I knew that Claire had no idea who this character was, so it would be a meaningless reveal, is long before he showed up in person, I introduced the Van Richten guides. And so Claire sat down and read these as an in-character text. And went, I now understand, more about vampires. Thanks, fictional author Van Richten. And then he showed up. And so as a result, it was a much cooler reveal.
Yeah.
And so you can give them to your players as a in-character text, which is cool. So yeah, there's 8 of these, going from vampires, let's see if I can do this, vampires, ghosts, werewolves, liches, ancient dead, which is like mummies, demons, Vistani, and...
Is it witches? Did he actually manage to do that one, or...
Witches is the special 9th one.
Oh, okay.
There's always, it's the theme of Ravenloft.
Is it created?
Yeah, and it's the created, which is golems. Special focus on Frankenstein monsters, yeah. For each of them, there was also a tie-in adventure, which was meant to sort of showcase the ideas of it. Some of these were not very good and didn't really have a lot to do with making the monster unique, whereas on the other hand, Castle's Forlorn, which I mentioned before, was the tie-in adventure for ghosts. And boy, is the ghost in that one a unique individual with his own backstory that you have to find out. Wow, they took their own advice for that one. They also released another tie-in series to these, where if the Van Richten guides are the theories, then the Children of the Night books are like that theory put into practice.
Children of the Night.
So there are only 4 Children of the Night books, but there's actually 5. Wow!
I love this. This is...
Yeah. Oh, actually, I should mention, with the Van Richten guide, if you're buying the PDFs from Drive-Thru-RPG, don't buy the individual PDFs. You can get the collected editions, which were collected later. They were republished with 3 books in one, and they had with them the Lost Van Richten's Guide, the Mystical 9th book, which is Van Richten's Guide to Witches. In 3rd edition, they also, because the Van Richten brand was so strong, they also released a few extra Van Richten books there. But I don't think they're as iconic, and so they're not part of the recommendation here. Yeah. Then again, everything in the 3rd edition line. So yes, they released Children of the Night. So there was Children of the Night, vampires, ghosts, werebeasts, and the created. And each of these had about 13 NPCs who were designed just to be utterly unique examples of their race. Some of them were more unique than others. Some of them were better designed than others. Some of them were existing characters who had sort of shown up previously in Ravenloft and were now getting fleshed out a bit more. Others were brand new characters who got invented specifically. They're not all hits. Some of them are really dumb. Strahd's niece, Lissa von Zarevich, I've always thought is one of the dumbest ones. She'd actually shown up earlier, so it's not like they invented her for this book. Her deal is vampires get different strength based on their age, right? So she hung out with a ghost and then seduced the ghost and then laughed at it when it couldn't do anything. And the ghost attacked her and aged her, so she got superpowers.
What?
Yep. She got herself artificially aged by a ghost so that she'd be a stronger vampire. That's her unique thing.
Oh my god. That's so weird.
It's so dumb. And as a result, she's a big, scary, badass vampire, except she keeps trying to go up against Strahd, and Strahd is smarter. I don't like Lissa von Zarevich. No. She's dumb. But there are other vampires who are very unique, and there are other monsters who are very unique. So, just for a couple that we just flipped through the books before and picked out a couple that we like the look of. Jack Be Quick is a vampire who lives in a sort of amusement house, fun fair. He's invisible, and he gets summoned over the course of his adventure, and only when he's been fully summoned can he actually feed on you once you're scared enough. All of these monsters, by the way, after they have their write-up, they all have a very short little adventure that sort of highlights what they are and what they're about. A lot of the adventures involve killing them, but, that's how it goes. Some of them are better than others, as always. In Children of the Night, The Created, we think Azenrath is pretty cool. Azenrath was originally an evil treant who got killed, and his wood got used to make magic items. And then all the magic items came alive and started reanimating into a wood golem that are now stalking around trying to find the last artifact made out of him so he can reassemble himself.
So cool.
Yes, the only thing you can do with Azenrath is kill him, but so
cool. Stuff.
So cool. He's on the cover of Children of the Night Were Created, which is why if you look at it, there's this golem made out of twigs and sticks, bound together by magical scrolls acting as skin, with children's toys embedded in him and bits of artifacts and stuff.
So cool.
So cool. And in Children of the Night Werebeast, we thought Professor Arcanus looked really cool, who is a were-gorilla showman who travels around with his unique artifacts that he's got to show to pundits, some of which are absolutely useless trash that he's just making up something with, and some of which are ridiculously cool.
Literally a domain of Ravenloft.
Yeah, he's got a dagger with a gem in the pommel, and the gem is a domain. He's got the skeleton of a dead Dark Lord of Ravenloft who vanished back during the Great Conjunction. He's got him with a stake in him, and if someone takes the stake out, then they're bringing back this big bad. So yeah, we thought he's a really cool and unique character. I don't have Children of the Night Ghosts, so I can't comment on that one. Anyway, once again, there were going to be more of these, but they came out just as the Ravenloft line, just the second edition got cancelled, which is why you'll notice this one. See the Ravenloft logo?
Like right down the bottom.
Yeah. They didn't even want to say it was Ravenloft anymore for this one.
Wow.
Because they're trying to say you could use it for anything.
Oh, okay.
But, yes, the line got cancelled because second edition got cancelled.
Mm-hmm.
And so only 4 of them came out.
Oh, what was the 5th one?
But the 5th one got written as a netbook by the Cargatane.
Yeah.
Gotta love those guys.
Nice.
I think they had another adventure that got cancelled that they wound up sort of writing up unofficially and putting on their website. But yeah, so the 5th one is Children of the Night Demons.
Oh, okay.
And they say because there's fewer... canonically there's lots of vampires in Ravenloft, but there's only actually a couple of demons. And so all the demons tend to be things that have already featured in Ravenloft lore here and there that they just put more detail into and flesh out a bit more. And yeah. So yes, those are our 5, recommendations. Yeah! Our 5 recommendations, which was actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 14, 19 recommendations in the end. Yeah.
That's so classically you.
Yeah. Ravenloft 2, House on Griffin Hill, Castles Forlorn, Night of the Walking Dead, The Nightmare Lands, and The Van Richten Guides. Worth checking out.
That was sweet. Thank you. I really want to play Ravenloft again.
I always want to play Ravenloft again.
That's the major takeaway for me. Yeah, it is. It's my favourite.
It's just a really cool world.
I love gothic horror.
Yeah.
So much. And I apparently don't mind being psychologically tortured by you if Ravenloft 2 is anything to go by.
That was a fun bit. Well, I think we'll be doing another Ravenloft session at some point.
Sweet.
Because once we get our hand on the Ravenloft book, maybe we will do a read-through of that. Or maybe we will play the adventure in it.
Sweet.
Yeah, do it as a one-off.
Heck yeah.
Whenever that is. Whenever it actually comes out, of course, we'll get it here about a month later at least. Because New Zealand! And maybe once I've finished doing my Dragonlance read-through, I'll do some Ravenloft novels. I'm never going to finish my Dragonlance read-through.
Alright.
So yeah, that's us.
That's us. Well, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks for listening. Check out some more of our stuff. If you like this, why not listen to another of our podcasts? Why not watch one of our live streams?
Why not go read some of our session reports from years and years ago on Ravenloft?
Why not leave a comment and tell us what your favourite Ravenloft book is, or what your favourite Ravenloft monster is?
Or why not leave some spam, like most of our comments are.
Please don't leave spam.
Or why not go off on some bizarre tangent that looks like it's been written by an AI.
Anyway, that's us. We'll be back again next fortnight, and in the meantime, keep gaming.